Mike wants to discuss probable cause with Tiger Woods, right? And then the bond issue on the Pima County Sheriff's officer that was arrested for kidnapping. Floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, just to kind of jump right into it because where we left off before with Tiger Woods, and I just feel like there wasn't enough probable cause there for an arrest. Not a legal expert by any means, but plenty of car accidents before, and the way I've always understood it is that a car accident isn't necessarily a crime. Wanted to get into that one with you because I also have questions about like DUI checkpoints and I feel like those are Fourth Amendment violations.
Okay, so let's talk about Tiger Woods first. So there's an accident, right? And his SUV ended up getting flipped onto the driver's side. So the police show up and their job is to try to determine what happened in the accident, right? Who's at fault? If there's any charges that need to be brought, if any crimes were committed. From my understanding, he clipped a car from behind because the car was slowing down to turn right, I believe. And he wasn't able to slow down in time. He did try to maneuver out of the way, but ended up clipping. It wasn't a commercial truck, but it had a pressure washing machine on the back of it. And that's what he ended up clipping. When he clipped it, and they did say he was going at considerable speeds, his SUV flipped onto his side, and that's where it came to rest. He was able to extricate himself out the passenger side. And then police were called, and that's where they made contact with him. When you talk about probable cause, you're talking about a level of, so when they get there, obviously there's a suspicion, right? And then that suspicion has to be increased to probable cause in order for them to effectuate an arrest. So the probable cause is there was an accident. It was a strike from behind. Hey, JJ, nice to see you. It was a strike from behind, which is in and of itself a crime or, a traffic infraction. You have the duty as a driver to keep a lookout in front of you. Thank you, JJ. It's nice to see you in here. To keep a lookout for things in front of you, right? And sometimes those things are not easily avoidable, like when a tire flies off of a car coming in the opposite direction. But this was a car that was turning. It was slowing to turn. And obviously, if he were going at a reasonable speed and keeping a lookout, he should have been able to stop his vehicle before then. So that gives them suspicion to not only write the ticket for failure, following too closely, but also inquire from him exactly what happened in his point of view. And when they inquired of him, they found that he was they suspected him of a level of intoxication. But they didn't smell alcohol on him. And so, they gave him the breathalyzer, which was 0.00. They asked him for a urinalysis, which he refused. And they asked him to perform field sobriety tests, which he did. And in their opinion, he didn't successfully complete. So all of that, in my opinion, and you're welcome to argue with me, I welcome that, is probable cause to arrest him for driving under the influence. Now, is it enough to convict him? In my opinion, no, especially without those chemical tests. But what part of what I just told you doesn't rise to probable cause in your mind?
Well, the fact that there was no, so he was involved in a motor vehicle accident, which happens 100 times a minute in this country. He blowed zeros, field sobriety tests resulted we don't really know what the field sobriety test resulted. I believe I don't think they came out with what they found suspicious to rise to the level of intoxication. I really feel like they're almost using his past history as the probable or evidence here, the baseline evidence.
That is one of the downsides of being a celebrity, right? And everyone knowing your business. And I would agree with you on that. I would agree with you on that. But let's take that aside. Let's say it was you or me who exhibited the same things. Do you think they would have probable cause to arrest us for DUI?
Again, not knowing the full story behind what the field sobriety test results were. No, I don't. I don't think that like I said, accidents are accidents. That um, you can't yeah. There's always a fault in a motor vehicle accident. Or most of the time, there's a fault.
Right.
I just I don't know. It just doesn't. It's not sitting well with me. The fact that just because he had a motor vehicle accident and is likely everybody knows his history by at this point, and that wasn't seems like the what rose their suspicion to the level of impaired driving. Um,
Would you agree that him following too closely and not being able to stop for a vehicle that was making a turn in front of him is enough for them to be suspicious for something other than following too closely?
um,
Jesus, I'm not sure what you mean. How does my live affect a potential jury trial? Is that what you're asking? This live here? I don't think it really does any more so than what you read in the papers. Hey, Annie M, how are you
yeah,
feeling? Hey,
we're all
Tonda.
allowed to have opinions. That's the great thing about this country.
Yep.
Um, do I feel like him following too close is enough to raise? Is that what I'm?
Yeah, so do you feel, first of all, Jesus, you only have to put your comment in the chat once. We already replied to you, and please don't spam my chat. Thank you. And if you guys wouldn't mind tapping, that would be great, just to get me up to 10K, get us out to the FYP. And if you want a box, just request and let me know that you want to come up. So yeah, Mike, the question yeah, we're talking about Tiger right now, Annie M. So is the fact that he was going too fast to slow down for someone who was turning, someone traveling the same direction but was slowing down to make a turn? Hey, Lisa, is that enough? Is that enough reasonable suspicion to inquire of him further to determine if there was some sort of intoxication?
Yes, yeah, I do feel like that gives enough reasonable suspicion to continue the investigation, but uh, the the breathalyzer resulted in a negative. So, and it's his right to refuse the urinalysis. I would love to really know what the evidence is or what the result of the field sobriety test was, because um, they're just very flawed. They're very opinion based.
They're very
Um,
subjective.
yeah, and
They
I've
didn't
always
say
been.
what the results of the sobriety test were?
They just said that in the officer's opinion, the sobriety tests were not, they don't like pass or fail, but
Conclusive?
they were indicative of intoxication. Vico, I don't know if they have a video of him. I'd be surprised if there's no dash cam video in Tiger Woods' car, but I don't know for sure. Thank you, Tina. Appreciate that. So, okay. So, Mike, you say that there is enough articulable suspicion for them to investigate based on the fact that he was going at a high rate of speed, which is how they put it. Okay, Mike, no problem. Going at a high rate of speed, unable to stop for a car that was traveling in the same direction for them to make a turn. So that's enough suspicion for them to inquire further. And do you think it's enough for them to ask for field sobriety tests? And he may not be able to come off mute just yet. What do you think, Tennessee Kid?
Honestly, like if they smell alcohol, is that enough to do that?
They did not smell alcohol. What they said was he appeared to be under intoxication of something, but they did not smell alcohol. Does that change your opinion?
A little bit.
Vico, it's my understanding that the driver did had their turn signal on and that he was traveling at a high rate of speed. Hey, Lala. Okay, Otter says he literally rolled his car onto its side. That's probable cause. Otter, would you say that's suspicion or is that probable cause? Because traveling at a high rate of speed, And hitting someone and flipping your car does not necessarily mean that you are DUI, right? You could have been distracted. You could have been using your phone. It does to me give a suspicion of, okay, you were doing something other than looking out the windshield, right? So does rolling the car on the side, would you say that's probable cause, or would that just be suspicion? You don't have to be intoxicated by alcohol to be under the influence. Correct, Sugar Boom Boom. You're
I don't know
welcome to
which.
speak up.
Suspicion.
Go ahead, Tay.
I just said I would say suspicion. Go ahead.
Which brings in a whole entire another level. Like you could
Salty
take
Crimes. I'm sorry, Mike. Salty Crimes has a good point. Reckless driving or DUI?
reckless driving apps. Well, I'm not too familiar with what the laws are in Florida. What elevates it to reckless? Um, like yeah, you can. I feel like the argument for reckless or careless, absolutely. Um, the argument for enough suspicion to say DUI, unless there was something else that like pinpoint pupils or blown pupils. I'm just
Was there any slurring of words?
And I watched the presser. I watched the presser, and what they said was when the officers interacted with him, he appeared to be intoxicated. But here, I'm going to add something to it, Mike, that you're not going to like. So here's my question. Yes, I think there is a suspicion of him going too fast for conditions, right? Definitely something to be said for following too closely, because he did clip that car in front of him. But he also then flipped his car onto the driver's side and then extricated himself. So is it intoxication or is it a head injury?
yeah. Head in any like I can even go. Was his blood sugar too low? We don't know his medical history.
Medical emergency, right?
Yeah, and that's where I get concerned about some of the sobriety testing for the green stuff that's coming out, because there's no real chemical way to test for the green stuff that's you might be under the influence. And I feel like that is there's no. Yeah, they're studying it. They're trying to figure out the best way to test for it, but it's a subjective test. There's no evidence. There's no. Um,
A urinalysis would do it, though,
yeah, but if you had that stuff 10
right?
days ago, it's going to be
Right.
in your
Oh, you're
system.
absolutely right. Yeah, that stays in your system up to 30 days.
Yeah, it's not like the white stuff that is out in 72 hours.
So did you say 72 hours?
I think for the white stuff.
Yeah.
For the.
Yeah. Same with the black stuff, too.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Sarah said, I saw a video from the scene and him talking and no slurring. That's interesting, Sarah, because that makes me wonder, okay, so then what was it that he was doing or saying that made them feel like he was intoxicated? Was it just the I can't say it, the NST gaze, that test, which I think that test is highly flawed. I think they should stop using it. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and I've used that in EMS before, even though we're not really supposed to, because it's so subjective.
Right.
But it's like it all. But again, if you have a head injury, your nystagmus is going to be off.
Exactly. If he has a concussion, and it's highly likely that he did. I mean, just if you look at how the picture of his car, if you haven't seen it, his SUV landed on the side of the driver. Mike, are you okay? Are you like shoveling snow or something?
Is it that loud? I'm sorry, I'll bring it up. No,
It's really loud.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
No,
what are
no,
you doing?
Like, what are
Is
you
it the
doing
bird
up there?
again?
Scraping the bird, giving the bird. Tiger does need a self-driving vehicle. I agree. Tiger could also take an Uber. And you're right, Stephanie, there's no way to gauge how much or when the green stuff, if there was green stuff. So here's the other thing. Oh, wait, Sarah, I think just due to the wreck, and the speeding, but yeah, no, to me, it's reckless driving or due speed. I think they're going to have a problem proving DUI. because he didn't do the chemical test. But here's my question. Hey, Duquan, nice to see you. My question is, you have the right to refuse not only chemical tests, but those field sobriety tests. So let's assume, because it's always fun, right, to assume. Let's assume, thank you, Tammy. Let's assume for a minute that he didn't do the field sobriety test. Then what do they have? They have an accident. They have the statement of the guy that he clipped. And they have an interaction with someone who might possibly have just had a head injury, but he was also known to have a back injury, shoulder injuries, ankle injury, I believe. He has a host of medical issues. No, court, they did not do blood.
Yeah, and do you know how many times I've been to EMS calls for, we think this guy is under the influence of ETOH, but when we get there and we start doing workup on them, we find out that their blood sugar is bottomed out at like 30.
Right. And that smell can be ketones instead of ETOH.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey,
yeah.
Court, nice to see you. Fellow paralegal, I always have to shout you out. What state are you in? I'm in Pennsylvania, just so you know. Thank you guys for all the gifts. I'm trying to keep up with the chat, but they said they were going to do blood. I don't think they did, Tammy. Listen, and I don't have this. This is my conjecture and my opinion, but if you're in North Carolina, love it, Court. Thank you for being here. You're welcome to come up if you want to. Hey, Sleepy, nice to see you. That's why wearing a bracelet, if you have a medical condition, really helps. Totally agree, Stephanie. If you would, from your chat to my dad's ears, if you would, please. Oh, don't get me started. Thank you for that follow, Court. Hey, 12, nice to see you.
So, I agree with the medical bracelet comment, but
yeah,
a lot of times there are conditions that you don't know you have.
True.
That, like a concussion. Obviously, nobody's going to wear a bracelet for a concussion, but likely his airbags did deploy, and that is a significant. What's the safe word I can use here? When those airbags deploy, that
we use all words here. This is an adult chat.
Okay, so when those airbags deploy, it's a significant caliper. They equate it to a significant caliper shotgun round going off.
Yeah,
but go on.
No, I was gonna say, if someone has never been in an accident where the airbags deploy, those things come out of there. I mean, rightfully so, right? Because that's what they're meant to do. They're meant to protect you from the crush of the vehicle. But I don't think until it happens to you, you realize how fast those suckers come. It's like being punched in the face. And when you're punched in the face, there's always that, especially when you're not expecting it, right? That disorientation. Tammy said that happened to one of our school bus drivers here in Alabama. His sugar had gone sky high. That is frightening. That is absolutely frightening. Oh yeah, Tainted Angel. I forgot about the burns as well, because there's Mike, what is it? Is it like a chemical in the airbag?
They used to use cornstarch, but it's more the how quickly they come out and the fabric coming in contact with your skin, the friction that results of it. It causes airbag burns.
And Nico said it stinks so bad. It does smell really bad. But he said he was taking prescription drugs for pain. I haven't heard him say anything. And that's what I was about to say, Tammy. If I'm Tiger Woods, I mean, this is probably not true for the most of us in here, the 176 of us in here right now. We probably don't have our lawyer on speed dial or, have his number saved in our phone. I would imagine Tiger Woods does. So as soon as that happened, if I'm guessing, and I don't know this for sure, I'm just conjecture at this point, I would say he probably called his lawyer before he called anybody else and before the police got there. I don't think he's diabetic. I haven't heard that. That's classic. Thank you so much for that.
Okay, I was just going to ask.
If you don't, you should. That's right, JJ. We'll just leave that there, JJ, right? It's so nice to see you, my brother.
I can say one thing. I don't think him and Justin Timberlake should open a bar together anymore.
Oh my goodness! Did you see Justin Timberlake's field sobriety test?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Do you not? That's my name. My name is TN Kid because of Justin Timberlake. So
better yet, did you see the overlay of Justin Timberlake dancing on his field sobriety test video? I have to send that to you, Tennessee Kid. I
Please
felt
do.
bad for laughing at it, but whoever put it together, that was actually very clever.
No,
Oh, I
listen,
didn't
it
see him dancing.
was, yeah, no.
Yeah, Court.
Lala sent me the Carlton dancing over it, like joking around.
It was hilarious. I'm not even ashamed that I laughed. I mean, I am a little bit. I felt a little bad. Court, I don't have it, Tainted Angel. I'll have to go find it and
That
I'll
was
just
so
put it in my
embarrassing, though.
repost. Court, I agree, except remember you and I are paralegals and we can't give legal advice. So anything we say in here is our opinion and not any legal advice. But I hear you. Don't ever talk in your opinion. I hear you. Oh my goodness. There's only 18 minutes of over an hour of footage. Turn your body cameras on. Oh, but you know what? In Justin's case, his attorney fought so that not all of it was released. I do remember that.
Yes, they were able to, they took
They
out
cut it
some
down
of
to
it.
18 minutes. If you're referring to Justin and not Tiger, they argued that they only wanted that. I would have been like, yep, so bye. Stephanie. Stephanie
That
always
is so
making
good.
herself relevant in everyone's life.
And
I
I
have
tell you,
Dickie's personal cell phone. I hope I never need it again. I hear you smoke. Hey, how you feeling, my friend? I wonder if he started singing a sad song in the backseat on the ride to jail. You guys are awful.
I stuck my own foot in my mouth there. But listen, I don't condone it.
How
so.
do you think he felt? And this is an honest question. When the cop said, "What do you do for a living?" And he's like, "I'm Justin Timberlake," and the cop goes, "Who?"
I know. And what's crazy is, did you see his friend? Like, haven't you heard of like "Sexy Back"? Bye. Like, she's trying to really like do it.
I didn't see
not
that
her.
part. I just saw where he was pulled over, and then when he was doing field sobriety.
Oh, you have to watch the video where he's actually in the station.
Okay, I'll have to
He
go look
laughs
it up.
when they checked off that he was white. He was like laughing about it, like it was.
They checked off that he was white.
Yes, and he's like white, like joking around. I was like, oh my god.
Oh my
that
goodness.
Crimea River.
I don't know. It was wild. It was wild. He wasn't being disrespectful. It was kind of embarrassing and funny, but I don't condone it ever.
JJ, you think the cop did that on purpose? Just to see what he would say?
I heard he legitimately didn't know who he was, but I don't know how that's possible, but that's just coming from me.
Jackie said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm on a world tour."
Yeah.
He could only say he's on a world tour and couldn't explain his profession. Wow.
Yeah, no, he didn't have one drink, without a doubt.
Sorry,
he was definitely intoxicated.
No, Sugar Boom Boom, I think this was last May that he got his DUI. Is that correct, Tennessee Kid? Whoa, Techie, thank you.
It was June 2024, a week before I was supposed to see him at Madison Square Garden.
Okay, so a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
That cop knew who he was. I would have known who he was, and I don't really follow him that much. I mean, especially if he gave him his license and it said Justin Timberlake, I think I would know who that is.
I'm so mad at like his friends too for like letting him drive. Like, why?
Stephanie said maybe the cop was young and only knew him as Branch.
Yes, he was. He was so young. That's so funny. That is so funny.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry to change the subject. I was just yeah.
No, that's all right. Mike will get us back on track. All right, Mike, what else you want to talk about?
well, there's two things that you said that I want to talk about. So the first one, where you said turn your body cam on, I completely agree with you, wholeheartedly. However, the one caveat I do want to say is, listen, folks, if you don't want to see into our world, don't look at the body camera. And the reason I bring that up is because there's been a lot of hate thrown towards the ME and some of the officers at the Idaho 4 case because of their dark humor. I don't know what to tell you. Like, if you don't want to see into our world, then don't look at our body cameras.
I think that's a good point, Mike. And I think everybody deals with that kind of stress differently, and take a thing, or, just take a step back and kind of think about what you do in your own job at work. I mean, I work with attorneys. They are the most foul-mouthed. Court, are you still in here? You can back me up on this. They are the most foul-mouthed. In fact, as you guys know, I'm writing my second book, and one of the chapters talks about what my boss and another attorney were talking. They were talking about an incest case that we were working, and what they called our client, which, I was 24 at the time, and I'd never heard anybody refer to a client like that. But they just referred to him as a baby, you-know-whatter. and moved on with their day. Meanwhile, I'm standing there like stunned, but that's how they deal with that stuff. Like when you see it every single day, you have to compartmentalize. And it doesn't mean that you don't empathize with the victims or even the defendant, depending on what the case is. It's just how you get through your day.
Yeah, and that's like
Healthcare as
under
well, Missy. Absolutely.
yeah, anybody that deals with death or has to deal with tough topics like that. I'm telling you right now, those bodies, what was released and how everybody's upset about that, that is nothing compared. I'm telling you, that's nothing. And just, Tess, I don't know if you saw it, but like the ME turned to one of the police officers and said, "Oh, you're gonna take your booties off. You're gonna take them home as a souvenir." I'm like, that's what
Yeah.
everybody's up in arms about. I'm like, you guys don't stop looking at our body cameras if you don't want to know what we're doing as a coping mechanism.
So here's my question then, Mike. Say, I do this at least once a month where I'm requesting body camera footage from a department, and say, I get it and I look at it and really, and this is true, I get maybe, say if I get an hour of footage, 15 to 30 seconds of that is really what I'm looking for. So how do you feel about cases like Luigi Mangione, cases like the Idaho 4, cases like Aaron Spencer? How do you feel about the full body camera footage being released instead of just the pertinent 15 to 30 seconds?
So,
Thank you, Nico.
as a former public servant, I've always known that my life was on display.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it gives a certain level of comfort to people that feel like we're doing harm every time we walk out the door. But those people also need to understand that if you're going to look into our world, then be prepared to see what our world looks like. Um, I, I don't really care releasing entire reels of footage. I think there are certain things that need to be redacted. Um, but like, I don't really get that upset about it. But again, if you're gonna look at the whole entire 4 hours worth of footage, be prepared for what you're gonna hear.
Right. Sugar Boom Boom has a good point. Wouldn't you need the entire footage for context? Yeah, I agree. I can tell you, so the stuff that I request for my job, when we play it in court, we aren't playing the 4 hours. We're not playing the hour, but we are playing more than just the 15 to 30 seconds for context for the jury. And that is determined in pretrial motions as to what timestamp we're starting at and what timestamp we're stopping at, because the judge isn't going to let you come in there with an hour worth of body camera footage with arrests or working other cases that have nothing to do with your case. You're just going to confuse the jury. Everyone who's followed me in here, Mayos is the last one. Thank you guys so much for the follows. If you guys make sure, this is Mike. He's a former EMT, a former firefighter. He comes in a lot. We just connected, I don't know, Mike, a couple of weeks ago, and gives a lot of good medical information, a lot of good law enforcement information. There's also a guy named Captain that we've been trying to find who will come in here. Tennessee Kid is one of the and Stephanie, they are two crime hoppers that you guys met a couple of lives before I introduced you to them. They cover the Nancy Guthrie case to the nth degree. So if you are curious about anything that has Nancy Guthrie, make sure you're following them. They go live every single day. Jimmers, I see you in here, my love. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. There's 162 people in here right now. If you wouldn't mind tapping the screen, we're at 40,000, and I appreciate each and every one of those. And if you wouldn't mind just tapping me up to 50, see if we can get to 50. You saw Captain on another live. He's cheating on us, Mike. Thank you, Jackie, for leveling up. He's cheating on us. You guys go over into that live and give him crap. I'm kidding. I don't think we told him that we were going live. So
He's too scared to come in here and show everyone his firefighter tattoo.
I just shared
We
it with him again.
we do argue a lot, Captain and I, but in a professional way. We don't agree on everything, and that's okay. You don't have to agree with me on everything to be in here. Hey, Christine, nice to see you. We still have boxes open if anybody wants to come up. I know Mike you wanted to talk about DUI checkpoints.
Yes, there was one other thing that I wanted to touch on before we got it. It's kind
Okay.
of, I guess, a decent segue. DUIs
Exactly.
with prescription medication and over the counter medications. Um, I feel like that is like every. I feel like every medication that is out on the market right now, if you look deep down inside the fine print, it says "Do not operate a vehicle," or
Heavy machinery.
yeah. How does that play into DUI? Like, because I just feel like if you really follow that to a T, then probably 85% of people driving on the road right now are could be charged with a DUI.
Could be impaired. Yeah. So impaired driving, of course, is not just alcohol. It can be legal drugs. It can be illegal drugs. It could be a mix of both. Could be over the counter stuff. I know I am one of those people where I am super sensitive to medication. Anything above ibuprofen will put me to sleep. So if I take anything other than ibuprofen or antibiotics, I can't drive. And I'm one of those people that if I have one drink, I won't drive because it affects me a little bit differently. Under the law, if you are taking a prescription drug that says do not operate heavy machinery, you cannot drive while you're under the influence of that drug. And so let's say that drug has a half-life of 12 hours. That would be if you take it at midnight, then you can't drive till noon the next day. And that's how that works. If you are pulled over and you're under the influence of that drug, you can still be charged with DUI.
And that's kind of what's like, at least in comparatively to Tiger Woods. Like, I'm sure the dude's on medication. He's getting up there in age.
Well, that hurt me, Mike.
Listen, I have high blood pressure and medication now, but like, is that what they're gonna hang their hat on here? You think? Do you think that because he has medication in his system that they're
Right.
gonna
Well,
hit
I
him
mean,
with?
they don't know, but they don't know if he has medication in his system because he didn't take the urinalysis. Somebody said that they thought they were taken to get blood. If he didn't go to the ER, while he was in custody, they would still need a warrant to draw his blood. And I'm not so sure that they would have enough for a warrant. Captain, who happens to have some expertise in this, let me introduce you guys to Captain, ex-law enforcement. Sometimes my friend, sometimes my adversary, but always respect his opinion. But in order for them to know he was under prescription drugs at that time, Mike, he would have to make that statement to police that he did take some drugs, or that he was under the influence of, Percocet, or I don't know what he's on, but any kind of pain medicine. And unless he did that under Miranda, I don't see that coming in. Hey, Captain, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Did we bug you enough to get you over here?
Oh, you're fine.
Somebody came in and said, Captain's over in another live. I'm like, oh, he's cheating on us. I see.
I wasn't in a live. I was taking a nap. I was feeling
I
old
told
like
you.
Mike.
I'm so jealous. I would love to be able to nap during the day. Mike is scraping paint off of his crow or something. We're not sure what he's doing up there.
Mute up again. I'm insulating a basement.
Oh, you're
complaining
trying
about-
to make something warm for the bird?
Can you turn down a blood test without losing your license? Depending on your state, most states, if you're asked to give, that's a good question. If you're asked to take a breathalyzer or a urinalysis, at least in Pennsylvania, you will lose your license. That's a separate issue. That's an administrative issue with the Department of Transportation. The blood, Captain, what do you know about the blood? If they ask for blood and they don't have a
blood
warrant,
would fall under the same implied consent.
Yeah.
And so it would be administrative so far as the license, unless, we say through the
Agreed,
disposition they find you guilty of the DUI, then it's different. But even the blood falls under implied consent.
But if he declined to give a blood sample, they would have to get a warrant for that. Am I not right?
Unless he has a CDL and the accident happened in a commercial motor vehicle.
Yeah,
Outside
no.
of that, then yes, they would have to get a warrant to force the blood draw.
Right. Good question, though. And I agree with you, Arnell, that, he could have killed somebody, or I'm sorry, Arlene. He could have killed somebody. I totally agree with that. It's time for him to realize when he can and cannot drive. Allegedly. Everything is alleged, right? He hasn't been convicted of anything. If you refuse in Missouri, you lose your license for a year. That's how it is in Pennsylvania. You have to consent to your to a breath test or urinalysis if you are asked, and if you don't, then you have a mandatory 1 year 1 year's license suspension that is handled through PennDOT. Now you can still appeal that through PennDOT, and that's separate from your criminal charges.
Yeah, the implied
That's what I
consent, Tats. I'm sorry, Mike. The implied consent is pretty consistent across the
I
country
think
at
so
this
too.
point.
I think so
All right,
too. I
so-
think really it only fluctuates on how long the suspension is.
So
Correct.
let's talk about implied consent here. So Cap, how much do you know about the Tiger incident?
Lost Salt is
no.
not his first time. I know it's at least his second DUI, if not more. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Captain.
Yeah, not a whole ton. I know the basics
Okay.
of it, Mike.
All right. So obviously, he has a history, but he was in a motor vehicle accident, rolled his vehicle. They did a field breathalyzer, which was no, he blew zeros, and then they did a field sobriety test, and then they said, no, yeah, you're under the influence. Like, how much can you move the finish line here? Like, he did the field sobriety, he did the breathalyzer, then they wanted him to do a blood test. Like, how much?
Urinalysis.
I'm sorry, your analysis.
Yeah.
How much can the finish line be moved in an effort to try and prove something that may not be there?
Okay, well now you're going back to the whole thing I said yesterday when you were not hanging out with us. DUI law is based 100% off officer's opinion. And the Supreme Court has already decided an officer's opinion does not mean shit. So for a DUI, you can pass the FST and I can still arrest you for DUI. You could blow all zeros on the PBT and I can still arrest you for the DUI. Those things only assist the officer in establishing probable cause for the arrest. So I can do, I'm going to say this in a horrible way and I'm going to watch Tat's faces light up. See, there's the eyes. I can do almost anything necessary to establish the probable cause. But see, there it is. When I say that, I mean legally, right? So if I use the FST and don't feel that I've obtained enough from that to establish the probable cause, I can simply sit there and talk to you. And based on your demeanor and your speech and all those things, I can establish the PC that way. Or it can be a combination of those things. So just because you pass, the I can touch my finger to my nose test doesn't mean I can't continue to investigate, right? You have to understand DUI is an investigation. Up until the point of the arrest, you are conducting an investigation. So if I believe that you are under the influence of something, I'm going to continue to go down the road of whatever I can legally do to establish, we always called it points, enough points for me to articulate that I believed you were under the influence of drugs or alcohol, and I effected the arrest. And then from that point, I took you in, I had you provide a sample on an intoxilizer, or because an intoxilizer will not detect shrugs, only BAC, or I obtained a warrant and did a blood draw.
So basically, it almost sounds like you're guilty until the officer can prove that you're innocent.
Okay, but that's a little unfair in this situation, though, Mike, because you have an accident, which gives them suspicion, right? We've already talked about that. So it wasn't like You know, like I said earlier, a tire flew off of a vehicle coming the opposite direction and you had an accident that way. Obviously, that would not be any fault, but he had an accident where he struck another vehicle from behind. So, okay, let's say they didn't have their suspicions are he was distracted or he was using his telephone or something other than DUI. I mean, that still would give them the right to investigate further, right?
Sure. But
Phoenix Rising, we're talking about Tiger Woods DUI.
in this case, almost sounds like, okay, they were doing the investigation. Um, they had a suspicion. They used a testing method, the field breathalyzer, which blew zeros, and they weren't happy with that. So they wanted to continue to move the finish line. And again, we don't know what the officer saw. They didn't come out with the nystagmus or if he was slurring his speech or anything. It does really seem like they were moving the finish line because they had a preconceived notion, predetermined opinion of Tiger based on his past events and history.
Okay, hang on, Captain. Hang on, Captain. I'm gonna pull rank on you for just a minute. You keep saying move the finish line. What's the finish line to you, Mike?
So basically, they did what was has been accepted by the court system as the norm with the breathalyzer, and he passed that. They weren't happy with that. He passed it, so they said, "Oh, well, you know what? Officer's opinion. He was under the influence."
Okay, but you would agree with me that alcohol is not the only thing that can put you under the influence when you're driving?
Absolutely,
And you would
110%
agree with me that breathalyzers only detect alcohol?
Agreed.
Okay, so under their job, because a police officer is charged with investigating crimes, right? So under their job, if they view him as impaired or possibly impaired, they give him field sobriety tests and he does not pass those, which for lack of a better word, I know Captain's going to jump all over me on that. But he doesn't pass that, but he does pass the breathalyzer. You think they should stop investigating at that point? Is that what you mean by moving? Oh, I scared him into his teacup, Captain. So why don't you answer that?
Sorry, my phone. I didn't realize I had an alert pop up on my phone.
I think one thing that you're missing, Mike, and maybe you're not, maybe it's just the terms you're using. It's my understanding he refused the breathalyzer.
No.
He refused the urinalysis.
Okay. So here's the thing, Mike. For him to blow on a breathalyzer, he was already arrested for the DUI. They had already established probable cause for him to blow on the breathalyzer. There's two different things. There's a portable breath tester. That's the one we use in the field that you as a firefighter see cops use all the time. And there's an Intoxilizer 5000. The PBT, or the portable breath tester used in the field, is not admissible in court as evidence. We can bring it up.
I forgot about that.
We can mention it, but the results of the PBT in and of themselves do not establish a reliable BAC for prosecutorial purposes. So that is only probable cause. And we confirm, that's how we put it on our reports, we confirm the results of that test with an Intoxilizer. So he could have very well passed the PBT on the side of the road, or he could have refused it. He could have refused the field sobriety test, the walk and turn, the touch your nose, the ABCs, all that crap. And they could have still, and clearly did, still believe they had probable cause for the arrest. So they made the arrest, and then they blew him on an Intox. If they would have done it in a different order, then they would have been violating his civil rights. They would have been unlawful search and seizure. So if they made the arrest, then they put him on the Intox and he blew all zeros. It is then reasonable for them to believe, okay, this is not alcohol related, or our Intox has failed because it does happen. So the next reasonable step would be a blood draw, because that is scientifically the most accurate. And there's other reasons we would prefer blood over BAC.
Well, they asked for a urinalysis. And the reason I think they asked for that is they wanted to do it there instead of taking him to the hospital.
Right. They wanted to take an immediate sample. I know in a lot of states, in my state, a lot of us law enforcement officers are actually certified as phlebotomists. We'll pull the blood right there on scene.
That's frightening. That
Right?
is frightening. Beathers, Beathers said why, and I'm assuming Beathers, and tell me if I'm incorrect, you're asking why the PBTs are not admissible in court. It's because they can't be calibrated. So they can be used as a tool, but the intoxilizer, which is at the station, so, when they take you into the station and do the intoxilizer, that is the machine that's calibrated to the standards that it has to be in order to be admitted as evidence in a case. If that's not your why question, just let me know. What state he was arrested? Phoenix Rising. He was arrested in Florida.
Cap, and I don't know originally when I said this. My other question is, when it comes to medication. So we know that you look in the fine print of any medication, somewhere in there it says, "Do not operate vehicles or heavy machinery while taking this medication."
Thank you.
And if you really take that at face value, then probably 85% of the drivers on the road could have a DUI issued to them.
Hang on one second, Captain. Beathers, they use it as a tool. It's as a tool just in their investigation. So it's not admissible. Like JJ just said, it's kind of like a lie detector test. It's a tool for their investigation, not admissible in court, but they can use it for their investigation. I'm sorry, Captain, go ahead.
No, you're good. So, Mike, just because it says that on the medication, I want to answer your question two ways. Just because it says it on the medication doesn't mean anything. The reality is, it doesn't say that on Tylenol. But if you take Tylenol and it impairs your functionality in any way, I can arrest you for the DUI if I can prove it. It doesn't matter what the medication is. It's the fact that it is a foreign substance in the body. A lot of medications we can measure by metabolite, how much is in the blood.
I mean, look at something like Benadryl. That's going to make you sleepy.
Right.
Yeah.
So whether it says it on the medication or not means nothing. But I also understand what you're saying. You could potentially have all these people out there who took Benadryl this morning or whatever, could be potentially arrested for DUI. And you're actually correct. But here's the key. It has to impair. So if I'm a person that takes an allergy pill every single day of my life, which I do, but it does not impair me, then it's going to be very difficult to charge me with the DUI. By definition of the law, yes, it could be a DUI, but you're going to have to prove the impairment.
Well, can I ask a really silly question? And I just want, it's building a case here. What is the definition of impaired driving? When what is the actual definition of impaired when it comes to motor vehicles laws?
It's, for me,
I'm gonna let the cop answer it first.
Yeah, right.
Good choice.
He's gonna tear me apart. The way I look at it in the field is going to be any condition which I reasonably believe. You like that? I'm using those cop terms to protect myself. Which I reasonably believe is going to result in or may result in your inability to safely control the vehicle. So for me, it's a very broad term. It's going to be up to the attorneys to fight it out. So if you have delayed reaction time, it's reasonable for me to believe that's going to impair your ability to safely operate the vehicle. If you're drowsy, that's going to reasonably impair your ability to safely operate the vehicle. If it creates cognitive issues, that's going to reasonably impair your ability to safely operate
And
the
that's
vehicle.
exactly where I was going with this. So, essentially, what you're saying is anything that changes the homeostasis of the person. Is that basically what I'm getting here?
Yeah, you could say that.
So, what about
But
a
it's going to
drug?
have to be, but Mike, here's the key. It's going to have to manifest itself in a way that I can recognize that it's there.
What about a drug like Adderall or Ritalin?
So okay. I see where you're going.
Yeah.
And there's
And
also
let me take a break between you guys and your piss and match for just a minute. An attorney, but not yours. I didn't realize you were here. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for stopping by. I really enjoy your content, and I'm glad that you're here. But let's let him weigh in if you want to on what you think or what the legal definition of impairment is.
I mean,
absolutely.
what's going to be argued, what's going to be argued in the court, really, and what I see all the time, it's why, what's the best way to, marijuana DUIs don't tend to get prosecuted, is because there isn't a showing of that impairment, right? So what we'll see in courts a lot of time is, officers will stop a car. They have the suspicion, right? They see whatever it is that they see, but they don't see any bad driving, right? Like there isn't any swerving. There isn't any
Am I just not hearing
slowing
anything?
down, speeding up. There isn't anything like that. And so when it gets into the court and we're actually presenting the case, a lot of juries go, okay, well, there isn't anything here with that. So the thing that I would add to that, at least as far as the court would be concerned or what would be presented in front of a jury is there some sort of bad driving? Like alcohol is really easy because there is an
odor, right?
There's a limit. There's a number, right? Period. Here it is.
I missed all of that. Was it good?
It was really good. You can't hear him?
I couldn't hear him at all. I can hear you and everybody else, but not him.
That's so strange. Can anyone else not hear an attorney? I can hear him.
I can hear him.
I can hear him fine.
Someone
okay,
can
I was like,
mute him.
Must be a defense attorney.
Oh my God. Welcome in, attorney, not yours.
hey.
He's a dumb cop.
So
yeah, that's weird. I can't hear nothing.
That's the big thing, and it's why a lot of the drug DUIs don't tend to go as well as alcohol, at least in terms of being prosecuted in the courts. Because if there isn't any bad driving, it's really, really hard to show the impairment. Whereas with DUIs, you have that line, right? That 0.08. Everybody knows that. Everybody understands that number when the testing comes in and you have the officers testifying to slurred speech, to watery eyes, to the FSTs, the field sobriety test. It's really easy to see that demonstrated. When it comes to rugs, it's difficult to see that, especially if there's not bad driving, because none of the field sobriety tests are calibrated or work for rugs. None of them. None of them are specified for that.
Yeah, and it's such a good point because I'm not sure if you were here when I was talking about it before that they're left to the officer's subjective field sobriety testing for the green stuff, and I feel like any officer when you're left to subjectivity, there's way too much question that is involved in it, and just a question for you. Sir, I'm sorry, I missed your name. What rises to the severity of bad driving in your opinion? Like, is a simple I'm going to say a simple motor vehicle accident because rollovers happen way more frequently than people think. But a simple rollover motor vehicle accident, does that rise to the level of bad driving?
Absolutely. Absolutely it does. That would absolutely be a part of it. And it could be something as simple as just running a stop sign, right? Like failing to yield at a crosswalk, like those kinds of things can all add up, right? It's just, this is one small thing in the broad scheme of a DUI, right? Like it's not like this is the only thing. It's one little thing in the broad scheme. All of these things combined together would make up that case. What, like I said, just in my experience in these kinds of cases, where the difficulty comes in with like rug usage versus alcohol is that lack of like specific standard of whatever the substance is, right? Like it's easy for a jury to go, well, the law says above a .08. He was at a .10 based on the criminal list and their testimony. Therefore, they're guilty. But with other substances, that line isn't there. And so what the prosecution has to do is bring in other evidence to show that they were impaired for the purpose of the driving. And that's where the bad driving comes into effect. That's where the field sobriety tests come in. But if a person doesn't do any of those tests, right, now you're just left really with the bad driving. And if there isn't any bad driving, it's kind of hard to get a conviction in the court. But yeah, bad driving could be, in the case of Tiger, 100%. That rollover, getting into a rollover accident absolutely would play a role in this, 100%.
I mean, that would be, in my opinion, and of course I'm just a criminalist, but in my opinion, the rollover itself, the fact that he hit a car from behind at a high rate of speed, that would give me reasonable suspicion to move on with investigating whether or not a crime took place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I do not fault an officer for arriving on the scene, seeing this happen, and then also seeing his demeanor, right? I don't know what his demeanor was. I saw some photos afterwards. He didn't look great, but also he was in an accident. So, I wouldn't expect him to look his best. But all of that factored in, right, is going to, determine, the officer is going to make that determination. And, it is subjective, right? It is going to be based on the experience of the officers.
When you think about investigating, like what police officers do, it's all subjective. It's their observations. It's the way that they interrogate somebody or question somebody and the answers that they get. Sometimes it's not the answers, it's the tone. Sometimes it's not the tone, it's the body language. It's all subjective, which is why probable cause has such a much less, is much less evidence-wise than beyond a reasonable doubt.
Exactly.
And that's why I think we need to really kind of hammer home is right now he's at probable cause, but to be convicted, he's got to go beyond a reasonable doubt. Hang on just a second, Mike. If we could tap up another 10K, I would love it. While you guys do that, I want to answer a couple of questions in the chat. Bethany said, but how many rollovers are there that are not considered driver is impaired? Good point. But what I'm saying, the rollover doesn't mean that they automatically go to DUI. The rollover means they need to investigate why this rollover happened. Does that make sense, Bethany? And then TN Kid, I feel that's enough probable cause for sure. If you're talking about just the rollover, I would respectfully disagree with you. I don't think that's probable cause for an arrest, but I do think that that's articulable suspicion in order to investigate whether there was a crime committed.
I just meant hitting them from behind in general at that speed and going over.
Well, yeah, I mean,
there's cause to do the test.
Yeah, there's definitely the traffic ticket, right? Following too closely, but then
right.
the whole speed and everything they have, that gives them the suspicion. I'm sorry, Captain, go ahead.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're good. And that's weird that I couldn't hear him, but I'm scared to talk because I don't know what he said, and then he's going to jump on me like I'm on the stand. But that's okay. Chien, understand that a simple crash or an accident, that's motor vehicle code. What you're talking about is transitioning from motor vehicle code infractions to criminal offenses. There's a big leap to do the two, and it happens a lot with DUIs. I'm just going to say counselor because I don't know what your name is. The part that I did catch is, even from my perspective, 100% correct. We're going to establish a driving pattern. So if it's an accident, that is the driving pattern, right? The accident occurred, and we're going to go down the road and investigate why we believe the accident happened. And it has nothing to do with what I want it to be. It's simply what the facts are going to show me as an officer. If I pull you over because you're breaking the line, you can't hold your lane, that's also a driving pattern. That's what starts the investigation.
The good old failure to maintain lane. That is I swear that's the go-to for every law enforcement. I saw you go over that white fog line.
Yeah, you want.
Oh, hey, Cap, before you go any, because I do want to say one thing, and I probably should have said this early on. Obviously, I am in full support of DUI laws and getting those people off the road. You guys know that how hard I'm fighting for Katerina and her family. I just want to put that out. I'm not trying to justify anybody doing any of this. It's just basically a conversation that we're having at this point.
Yeah, Mike, I don't think anybody ever doubted that. Nobody ever doubted that. And if they did, they just don't know who you are. No. This is a good conversation, though. It's just a good conversation to have.
So here's the key, and I think the attorney will agree with me. If and what
attorney, he says that to me all the time. Feel free to not agree with him.
I'm just trying to score points. So you shouldn't have said that. You messed me up, Tats.
You're welcome.
If the officer is doing his job correctly, and that's the key, we all know that there are shitty cops out there, but there's a lot of good ones. But if the officer is doing his job correctly, especially in light of that circumstance as a rollover accident, he should be asking the victim or the occupant questions related to, did you hit your head? Do you have any pain in your neck? Because those types of injuries, we know, even though we're not medical professionals, we know are going to or may very likely have an impact on that FST. And, you know, it's not going to change your blood alcohol content, but it could have an impact on your what's the word? Well, motor skills, your
fine motor skills.
Yeah, your fine motor skills. And hold on, baby. Yep. And so if the officer's doing his job correctly, he should be asking or trying to identify, even without asking, the possibility of those things occurring. And if, say in this case, me personally, I mean, obviously I wasn't there, but putting myself in those shoes, I would have looked at that accident and said, hey, I don't know that an FST is even going to be appropriate here because, you know, I have reason to believe that perhaps he's under the influence of something, but the FST may not be a fair representation. Try that. Of what's going on with this person. So that may be why I want a urinalysis, or rather, you know, a BAC, intox, and then he blows zeros, but I still see these things. That would be the reasonable justification to go to the next step, in my opinion.
Right. I can't speak for, you know, Florida. I work as a criminal defense attorney in California, and here, you know, the officers have a whole script of things that they have just on a form that they will go through so they don't miss anything. You know, detailing any injuries, detailing, you know, if they've had any surgeries, you know, injuries that they've had to themselves in the past, if they have any medical conditions, brain issues, whatever, to rule all of that stuff out. And I think it's important, and I know, Tat, you mentioned it, this is the probable cause, you know, state, right? Like, this isn't you are guilty of this beyond a reasonable doubt. Like, that is still the part that has to be proven in court. And it's really important to understand that, because probable cause is a lower standard, and an officer, again, you know, it's their training, right? If they're doing their job correctly, they have this belief, they go through the whole process, and they feel that they're warranted in making an arrest. There's no issues with the arrest. Now, what happens is it gets to trial, and okay, can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. He's not guilty. You know, we move on. Like, that's the whole point of the system here. Is it the best system that we have? I mean, you know, people can make arguments about that, but it's what we got.
Depends on the day, right? It depends on the day.
Exactly, exactly. And we just work with what we got. But I don't disagree with you there. It's if the officer's doing what they're supposed to do and they're following, all of their tools and following their guidelines and the manuals and all of that, there isn't, at least for me, like I don't have any issue. It's just about what we can, prove, what the prosecution can prove in court once it finally gets to court.
Well, that's a good segue. Thank you for bringing that up because there is another thing
I was going to do it for you. Go on. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I'll continue shoveling my basement. Go ahead.
To me, it was a good segue to something I wanted to bring up that some people in the chat had asked, and I want to discuss with people on the panel. Whether or not him being Tiger Woods, and we all know that he had prior DUIs, we all know he's had prior incidents and issues, right? Oh, look who's here. Allie, can you come up? If you can come up, just invite yourself. But we all know that he had prior issues and such. So let's say it was you or me, they wouldn't know without running our record whether or not we've had a prior DUI, but it's Tiger, right? It's Tiger Woods, and they know he's got that history. And just like you said, when they do field sobriety tests, they're going to ask you, do you have problems with your knees? Do you have problems with your feet? Do you have problems with balance? But with Tiger Woods, they already know, hey, you've been arrested twice before for DUI. Or maybe they don't know, but they have heard something about his, suspected drug abuse or something like that. How does something like that play out in a courtroom, in your opinion?
Before you answer that, can I just say I would never admit that shit on the stand as a cop.
Oh, why would you? Why would you say I knew it was Tiger Woods and he has a history of drug abuse? You wouldn't say that. You wouldn't say that for someone you arrested last week either. I mean, let's make that clear.
And wouldn't that be proximate evidence anyway? I mean, it would be highly prejudicial.
It would be to bring it in under testimony, but let's call a spade a spade. We're all humans and we all consume news and we all consume information. And this is a celebrity that has been in the news before for this type of incident. So that's my question. How does that play out in the courtroom? Obviously, they're not going to say anything on the stand unless they were really stupid. Maybe they're from the Altoona Police Department. Sorry, I couldn't help it. But they're not going to admit it on the stand that, it was Tiger, so we immediately took him for a breathalyzer. They're not going to say that. But how would that potentially play out in the courtroom, in your opinion?
I mean, I'm bringing that out. I'm getting that out one way or another. And it's not that an officer would say that, but it is hard, especially given that it appears that this is in the same area, right? Like this isn't a new, like this, he isn't in a different location. This is in Florida, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Right. This one's in Florida. Yeah.
Okay.
And Pivel Sniff, no, this is not the same department.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I would still, find a way to have that drawn out. It doesn't even have to necessarily mean that the officer necessarily testifies to that on the stand, but that does make a difference, right? In the way that the investigation is done. You're drawing out all of those, I don't necessarily want to call them good facts, but facts that work in your favor, right? Like he wasn't under the influence. Like they could not obviously do FSTs because he's had multiple injuries to his back and to his knees and to his, whatever parts of his body. He, did do, they call them preliminary alcohol screenings over here, but I don't think they did that there. They did just the intoxilizer. I did that. He blew zero. He had nothing, no alcohol in the system, right? It was an accident. He had gotten into a serious collision where the car rolled over. And so there is reason for him to have, issues with his speech or be kind of delirious or not all the way there because of what just happened. A lot of that would come in, during the trial phase. That's a huge part of this whole thing.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. If I were prepping this for my attorney, I think the number one thing I would say is, why did you go right to DUI? Why did you not consider he had a head wound? Why did you not consider he just rolled his car? Maybe he was just going too fast. Yes, it's against the traffic laws to go too fast and to follow too close. But why did you go straight to DUI? You didn't smell alcohol, and then you gave him the portable breathalyzer, and that said 0, and you still asked for a urinalysis. Go ahead, Kat.
That was going to be my next question. Like,
Yeah.
is that standard procedure to ask for a blood test even though the BAC comes back normal?
If they had a suspicion that he was driving impaired, I think that was appropriate. But I think, along with what an attorney not yours just said, I think that's going to be scrutinized on the stand.
And part of that's also going to be determined
so.
by the statutes in the state in which it occurred. So in my state, we have 2 charges. We have DUI, which is used for alcohol, and we have DWI, which is used for all other substances. So it's going to be a little bit dependent on that, but they would. This is when I've just never done this, so I don't know. I would think you could. Well, I don't know that it would be an evidentiary issue if I arrested someone for DUI, believing it was alcohol. For the sake of argument, let's say that I had established reasonable probable cause, and they blew all zeros. I can no longer charge with the DUI necessarily, but if I then amend the charge to DWI and do the blood draw and find metabolite.
So let me ask you this, Captain, while you're on that train of thought, let me ask you this. Again, let's go through really quickly. He has an accident. He hits somebody from behind. He's going at a high rate of speed, high enough speed so that his car flips onto the driver's side. He crawls out the passenger side. They show up and they think he's impaired. They do a breathalyzer, and that breathalyzer is 0.0. At that point, is it appropriate to ask for that urinalysis? Not whether or not he declined it. They don't smell alcohol. They just think he's impaired. He was just in a rollover. He had field sobriety tests, but he had a host of physical ailments, and he just blew 0.0 on the PBT.
I'm going to say that, and again, this is all conjecture, right? Because I'm not a part of it. I wasn't
right.
there.
Oh yeah, we're just discussing.
But I'm going to say it's possible, not knowing if Florida has a split statute. If they don't, it's possible that they did the UA or asked for the UA because that would provide results for some shrugs, and when he declined, that's when they asked for a blood draw. It's possible they didn't arrest him on the basis of alcohol. It's possible they arrested him on the basis of believing there was a different substance causing impairment.
Okay.
And that I
have that luck. You realize that, right?
I know you do. I don't know if the attorney mentioned this or not. The outward appearances or indicators of narcotics are much different than alcohol. They're much harder to see. And so you almost have to have a chemical test if you're going to prosecute that or charge that.
Because still very similar to a
they
medical
are very
condition.
And so is alcohol, Mike. I mean, I can give you a perfect example of that, but
why are they testing?
We're going to do everything in a systematic manner.
Okay, hang on a
gonna
second,
follow
Venture
a
Yard
process.
2. If you would mute for just a minute till we're done, and then we'll get to you. Okay.
We're going to do everything in a systematic process, right? And the attorney alluded to that. They have these checklists now. We didn't have the checklists when I was in, of the things to ask in the processes. We were just taught to do it in a systematic way so we didn't forget things, but that doesn't work always. But so we're going to go down a systematic checklist and go down the line. And that may be the process they followed, which led them to the UA. They've got the probable cause.
Okay.
They have whatever indicators they need, but they're not getting the result they're expecting.
An attorney not yours, I'd really like you to weigh in on this, because here's what I'm thinking. he has the accident. They give him the field sobriety test. They give him the intoxilizer, or not the intoxilizers. They give them the portable breath test. That's 0.0. At that point, is there a reasonable suspicion to ask for that urinalysis? Or is it more reasonable to think, let's take him to the ER because he might have a head injury?
I think it's more reasonable taking him to the ER because he has a head injury.
So I think, I mean, you can disagree with me because obviously it's the first time we've met, but I think fighting that administrative suspension for declining the urinalysis, I think he has a good argument there.
And that's what I was going to bring up. That sorry, go ahead, sir.
Oh no, you go ahead.
Yeah, no. So like as a medical a clinician, like it's a little alarming to me that they didn't bring him to a hospital to rule out the the medical emergency at this point.
But he refused.
He didn't refuse medical treatment. He refused a urinalysis.
Okay. I thought he refused the medical.
No.
Okay.
Let me ask, is it Betras? You had a question. Go ahead if you want to unmute and ask your question. Thank you for waiting. Appreciate you.
I just wonder, when you think someone's impaired and they're blowing at 0.00, why isn't the police or whatever obligated then to go, you know what, let's check blood sugar levels? Because that 9 times out of 10 could also indicate, and mask, impairment. I think why isn't the police doing that?
Totally agree. And we don't know what we don't know. We don't know if they asked him if he was diabetic or if he was on any type of medication or anything like that. And sometimes ketones smell like alcohol as well, right?
Yeah. And I'm just wondering, the first thing the police always think of is drugs and alcohol. But, okay, well, if you're blowing at 0.00, let's think outside the box. And of course, we know police don't do that. And stuff, and go, I think they should always carry a glucometer and go, you know what, let's check blood sugar level right then.
I stand by that because when my sugar's too high or too low.
Hold on a second. Oh. I'm going to have to bring up the fourth and the 14th Amendment to you. Right? So unless you consent to having your blood tested with a glucometer.
But you're having your consent tested with a breathalyzer. Why can't you make it the same?
Which is covered under the implied consent, but there is no implied consent for a glucometer, right?
But why aren't we talking about that then?
I totally agree.
I think it would save a lot of heartache, and a lot of miscommunion if we say, okay, well, if you're blowing a 0.00 and implied consent, let's implied consent for. That's the first thing that we do in the hospital as a nurse. If you're having any form of seizure or abnormality, the first thing we check is blood sugar.
Right.
That is the first thing that we check, to rule out quite a bit. And I think we need to have that discussion, and we need to put forth a bill or whatever saying, okay, well, and part of the implied consent is not only breathalyzer, but we'll check your blood glucose levels.
Oh, I think there's a huge liability there. And the reason I say that is, let's say an officer, so you're in the ER, right, ma'am? It sounded like?
She's a nurse.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a glucometer is a diagnostic tool. We use it preliminarily to figure out what somebody's BGL is.
But isn't that a breathalyzer too, a diagnostic tool?
Well, here's where it comes into liability. So let's say they find out this person has a blood sugar of 45, and they say, I'm not going to the hospital. Because people with 45 could absolutely be fully functioning, and they're like teetering right on the edge of hypoglycemia or shock. And they say, no, I'm not going to the hospital. I understand my blood sugar is that low. The officer can't force them. That's kidnapping now, if they're of the right mind state. They can't force them to go to the hospital. So
okay, but falling under the lines of doing a breathalyzer, and everything. I mean, okay, so you're impaired, or you have functioning alcoholics. Let's just say,
sure.
Stuff. I mean, granted, yes, getting behind the wheel, but I mean, if you're walking, and stuff, I mean, so, your prevention.
Yeah,
You
I
know, I
don't
mean,
I don't think your idea is far fetched, especially with diabetes on the rise in our society. But I do think that it is a slippery slope whenever you give up a right and your right to a constitutional insured right against searches and seizures. And every time you give a little more latitude to the police to take that right based on their subjective observations. I think that it's kind of a slippery slope. Do you know what I mean? I think that
well,
your
no,
heart's in the right place. Yeah, I
yeah,
think
and
your heart's in the right place, and certainly your logic is there. But unfortunately, logic does not always, and Captain will agree with me on this, logic does not always translate into the courtroom.
well,
TikTok
no, and
must
I
be
get that
glitching
because then
because the
you're pretty
last
much
two that
held
you brought
hostage
up
if
are
you
just
don't
like
do
the
the
attorney. I can't hear them. I can see that they're there, but I can't hear them. But so I'll have to swipe out and swipe back in here in a sec. But I'm guessing she brought up sugar shock or insulin shock and a glucometer, whatever they're called. Based on a couple of your comments, we as law enforcement are never going to rely on one of those as a justification for behavior that could mirror impairment, because we are not
You do that
medical
with a
professionals
breathalyzer.
and we do not know that a blood sugar level of X versus Y would or would not create that. I have had situations where I've stopped people and I saw what I believe to be indications that it may be a medical issue rather than, and I have called fire out or medical out for that purpose, and then I've relied on their determination of whether there was a medical incident occurring at
Then
that
why are
time.
you
And if they
allowed?
said no,
Bet
then
you
I've
are.
Then
Hang
why
on a
are
proceeded.
second,
what?
Captain. First of all, bet you are. He can't hear you, and secondly, nobody talks over anybody on my panel. So could you mute yourself for a minute until he finishes? Thank you. Go ahead, Captain.
Okay, but so in some cases I have called medical out because I've had question whether this was a medical issue or not. And if medical has come out and cleared them and said, "Hey, there's no indication of sugar shock or medical issue that would create the appearance of impairment," then I process it as a DUI. It's not my job as the police officer to determine guilt or innocence, only to provide an unbiased statement of fact and finding. It's up to the court to decide if you're guilty or innocent. My job is only public safety. So if I believe that there was enough impairment there that was not, I want to be careful how I say it, that was not justified, I mean, justified is probably not the right word, but is not explainable through a medical issue, then I am going to process it as a DUI or a DWI, period. Because I have an obligation, I have a duty to protect the other people on the road. And removing you from the road if you're impaired, I'm affecting that duty. Now, it might be inconvenient, it might be a medical issue, but I believe that I've gone the extra step in having medical come out and evaluate you. But I am not going to myself rely on a glucometer or anything like that because I'm not a medical professional. And my opinion, we got the attorney in here. If I did that, he would probably decimate me on the stand because I am not a medical professional. I don't have certifications and training in that. So but a lot of it is going to come down to I hate to say it, officer opinion. And again, officer's opinion doesn't mean crap. The courts have already said that.
And Cap, correct me if I'm wrong, but knowingly driving with a medical condition can also be I don't want to use the word prosecutor, but is also a crime. Like if you get behind the wheel with a cast on your right leg, that's careless driving, isn't it?
Not necessarily careless driving. I don't know that I would charge it as careless driving. I might charge it as, or write it, I should say, not charge. I might write it as negligent endangerment. Because you engaged in an action which you should have reasonably known would place others at risk.
And I forget why
yes,
I asked that
the
question.
onus is on the operator.
Okay, attorney, but not yours. I'm going to give you a chance to respond if you want to, and then bet you are too. I'll come back to you.
No, he's definitely right about him utilizing other things that he's not necessarily trained in using 100%. Like any good defense attorney is going to eviscerate all of that on the stand because their basic or the way that officers are trained, like we have all the manuals. We go through everything as we're going into trials. And so when an officer gets up on the stand, right, we're tying them to all of that training. Like, this is what you're trained in. You're trained in doing this specifically. You're trained in doing this specifically. You're not trained in this. You are not trained in this aspect. You're not trained to look for this. And so if he were to do anything outside of the scope of his training, uh, with regards to his investigation, it's going to come across really, really bad on the stand when he, says he did this. Like he used a glucose meter. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that in my current state.
Glucometer. Yeah,
Glucometer.
Glucometer. Okay. He tried to use this. He tried to use, these other tools. Like, yo, so you're not trained in all of that. What do you mean? Like, you used it. How could you possibly have interpreted any of this? How could you possibly know what any of this stuff means? And so he's absolutely right in that he is sticking with the things that he is trained in using, and is certified in using because, again, and that Kappa does a great job of explaining like this, like my job or his job specifically, right, is just to here are the facts, right? Like this is what I got as I saw it, and this is what we did, and this is what happened. And based on this, I thought that he was under the influence, and I went forward. And then it's my job to, get him on the stand and go through, okay, but these are the things you could have done differently, or this is stuff you didn't do. And, it's the prosecution's job to put forth all of that evidence to show that, these things did happen in this way and it is proven beyond a reasonable doubt. And if he were to go outside of that, it makes it really difficult for a prosecutor to be able to prove that in a court of law because like I said, any good defense attorney gets that kind of a officer on the stand who just decides they're going to go rogue and do all of these different things. Yeah, that's an issue right there.
I totally agree with that assessment. Steph, would you mind if I dropped you really quickly to get Captain back up here and then
That's
I'll bring
fine.
you back up? Thank
That's
you,
fine.
darling. I appreciate it.
Yep.
And then Bet You Are Too, you can go ahead and unmute. And I know you had a bunch of comments in the chat. If you want to share that with everybody. Are you able to unmute?
Now I can't hear anybody.
Captain, what is going on with your TikTok?
Let me close out, restart my phone, and I'll come back.
I bet you he needs to update the app.
Oh, yeah, Captain, check your updates.
Pats, as a nurse and an addiction nurse for many years, I do have a theory, and people may not have heard of it, but when I can have a couple minutes to discuss it, I will explain it.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike, because Bet just dropped. Bet, if you need to come back up or if you're resetting as well, just request and get back in the queue. Go ahead, Mike. Mike Crime. I don't know how we're going to. And Melissa, I see you down there. We're going to get to you too.
Well, Tiger is a long sufferer of mental illness. He's never been a proponent of it, but one of the things that he suffers from, he's never been outspoken, is OCD. And I think everybody can kind of say, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Tiger would have OCD with his swing and his perfection and the ball and the course in the backyard and his whole life. So he is OCD. That has been substantiated in a couple different articles I've read over the years. But there's a new treatment for OCD. But I think it's this treatment that he's under the influence of, because it also encumbers OCD and pain management. And it's called ketamine. And ketamine has come full circle at private clinics that is given to the rich and the ones willing to try new treatments with a lot of success. But there's certain rules when you are getting ketamine therapy. You go to a doctor's office, you're supposed to be monitored while you get it, usually through an IV, but nowadays, the last year or so, nasally. You get it in your nose, but it's still supposed to be administered by a medical professional, and you're supposed to be monitored. They do leave a lot with ketamine up in the air. We haven't really heard of it involving DUIs because let's face it, there's not that many people that go drive a car right after doing that. But for the mental and pain management, my gut and his behavior and actions, it looks to me like he was under the influence of ketamine therapy, which is becoming more common. Look it up.
Special K is the new miracle drug.
Okay, but Mike, as a nurse, wouldn't you agree that there's a real possibility that he had a head injury from that rollover as well?
Absolutely. Why he was not taken to be checked out, I'm not sure. He may have declined it, but due to his public image, it could be simply because he
Thank you
is
for
who he
giving.
is. Because he is who he is, and they may have came over and checked him out, his private doctor, at the jail facility.
Good point. Melissa, I think you had something to say about him refusing to go to the ER.
I actually jumped in because I know Bet True to You was saying about give the cops glucometers, give them,
Oh,
reason
Melissa's here. I'm
cops
so
don't have
happy.
glucometers. First of all, there's a difference between having somebody blow
He did knock it
and
off.
take a breathalyzer than there is pricking their finger, taking blood, and checking it. And then what do you do if they are low? Then what? We give them glucagon or something else, or they're not
Glucose
trained for
tablets,
that.
right?
They're cops.
Orange
What if they
There's a
refuse the
reason.
treatment?
Right, exactly. But there's a reason that they don't have glucometers and they don't test that. Actually, it's not their job. That's why EMS is called. That's why EMS was, I'm sure, there and would have had to take a refusal from him and did an assessment to determine if he was even legal enough to refuse that treatment.
Agree. And then there's liability issues too.
Hello, Phoenix. I'm
With
sorry.
that.
I jumped
Hi,
over you.
how are
It's nice
you?
to see you.
Nice
Yes, go
to
ahead.
see you
Please go
too.
ahead.
No, that's all I was going to say. I was just agreeing with what she was saying and was going to bring up the liability issue. So I agree with you, Melissa.
We all love
Right.
liability issues, don't we, attorney? Not yours.
Well, and a lot of times that's the way EMS thinks is, if you have somebody that is their BGL's 40, and like I was saying, if they don't want the help, and now you're an officer, like what do? You can't force somebody to go to the hospital. It's if they're coherent, if they're
Right.
what we call is ANO for him, ANO times 4. If he's ANO times 4 and he's saying I'm not going to the hospital, but his BGL's 40, and you now you're accepting the liability that this person's about to drop a couple more points essentially and go into a diabetic shock.
Captain, I invited you, just so you know. I don't know what's going on. I don't see you on the list, and I kept that box open for you, my friend. There's your box. There's your box. Come. Are you too good for your box? Come back into your box.
Can I say something or I can wait?
Yeah, Steph, go ahead.
I just know that more so when I'm low blood sugar, like sometimes like I slur my words and stuff. So it's like I know me personally, if I got stopped and they said I need to go to the hospital, I'm going because that's a very scary feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I'll do you one better, Steph. You guys have had me in your lives late at night. I get punchy and goofy, and I've actually had a drive-through worker ask me if I were drunk one night because I was just so silly and goofy and giggly.
Late night
Yep.
talk is my favorite set.
Yeah, I know, Tennessee.
So let me ask you some the legal folks in here. Could he very well have refused the urinalysis because maybe he's on a drug like trazodone that he takes at nighttime, which would still show in his system. I think that's a 72-hour drug.
I mean,
Could
we can guesstimate all day as to why he declined. He may have been taking something that made him fear that, or maybe he just didn't want to give them any more ammunition than they already had. Attorney, not yours. I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, I was gonna say depending on the state. So in California, once you have received or once you've gotten your first DUI, you cannot refuse blood, breath, or urine after that. So you get pulled over. Uh, officers believe that you're under the influence. They ask for a blood, breath, or urine. At that point, you have to do that. Otherwise, they add that on as another charge for a refusal with a prior. I don't know how the state of Florida does that. If they do something to that nature, but if they didn't, I mean, he's well within his right to refuse to
Right.
take the blood, take the breath, do the urine, do any of that. He does not have to do any of that. Now, what a lot of times ends up happening is that officers arrest. They just go ahead and arrest you for that under their suspicion, and then they get a court order, they get a warrant for the blood or for the urine, and then once they get that, they come in and take it. What that does do, what I will say is that it just um, prolongs that time frame. So with alcohol, right? If say you were stopped at 11 o'clock and it took you until 2:33 before they got you to the station, and now they're having to call the phlebotomist to come and take the blood, and then they finally take the blood about 5 a.m., 6 a.m. It's been 7 hours after the fact, right? Depending on what what the blood results come back, it's like, okay, there's some argument that could potentially be made
Absolutely.
there.
Yeah, the attorney I worked in Georgia when I worked for a criminal defense attorney. We fought a couple and won a couple of DUIs based on that time that it took them to test the person. So definitely there's a time constraint there as well. But if you're Captain Cheeto, who I think, can you hear us, Cheeto?
I can finally hear you.
Yay! If you're, he's your phlebotomist too. So not only will he put the handcuffs on you, he'll just take your blood too. So go ahead, Captain. I know you have tons to say.
Well, I mean, you guys are correct. For us, time is of the essence because we know that alcohol dissipates in the bloodstream. So we always try to expedite that process to give us the most appropriate reading possible. But the state of Utah tried something unique for a while, and the Highway Patrol actually installed intoxilizers in the trunks of some of their cars to try to expedite that time frame. It was a failure because the constant bumping and shaking of those machines driving down the road impacted their accuracy, but it was something that they tried. And when that didn't yield the results they wanted, that's when they went through and agencies started certifying officers as phlebotomists, or having them certified rather.
That's if Beatrice, I think that was her name, if she's still in the, I would love for her to come up because the comments that she's making about using AEDs and the lock zone versus a diagnostic tool are you're comparing apples to oranges there.
You can drop me down.
No, there's a place open. Rachel, thank you for dropping. Okay, go ahead, Mike. She's up.
Yeah.
Hey, Crime Bear, thank you.
And Melissa,
it's compared apples to oranges when they're all medical devices.
They're medical
not
devices.
medical devices.
There are
a breathalyzer.
Okay, one person at a time. Remember, my ADHD
ahead,
can't take everybody. So if you're not speaking, please put yourself on mute. We're going to hear from Bet Are You Too. We'll hear from her first, and then we'll let everybody respond who wants to. Go ahead. Floor is yours.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. So they can give Narcan. Narcan is a medicine. Let's all agree on that. However you want to classify, it's a medication. So they're obviously able to give medication without having a medical personnel on staff or there with them. And an AED is a medical device. If it's not a medical device, then please tell me why it's not a medical device when it does shock your heart. Okay, and so they're obviously practicing medicine because those are practicing medicine
Okay, but would you?
devices, however you want to classify it. Okay, and so and if you get trained, if you have to have training to use a breathalyzer to read numbers, why can't you be trained to read numbers on a diabetic machine?
I'm going to stop you right there because I don't know if you've been in my lives before, but that kind of hostile, aggressive tone doesn't sit well with me. So if you would please just check that. I understand that you're frustrated. I totally get it. But we have adult conversations and we are all allowed to have our own opinions on this, right? So would you agree that using an AED and using Narcan are more consistent with immediate life-saving events?
Absolutely.
And same with blood sugar machines, because if you don't catch it right away, they can go into diabetic coma.
Absolutely not. So are you familiar with the Good Samaritan?
We can agree to disagree, can we not?
Are you familiar with the Good Samaritan law?
Yeah, and that's why I don't practice it, because if I get stopped and I get held to a higher standard as a nurse, if I do the Good Samaritan law, they can sue me, for if I do it wrong, because I'm trained as a medical professional, and so we're held to a higher standard.
Sure, I completely agree with you. And Narcan
That's
and
why I will never stop. That's why I will never stop.
Well, shame on you, because you could save somebody's life. I have
Mike,
personally done it.
That's not appropriate. We don't say that in here.
I apologize, Tat. You are correct. So the Good Samaritan law protects the use of AEDs and Narcan in life-saving situations.
Does it specifically say that in the law? Does it specifically those two devices?
Bet, can I just answer the question? There's a very simple question of why law enforcement can utilize an AED or administer Narcan without being trained. It's literally the same reason we can kick the door down to your house without a warrant and enter if we hear you screaming for help. It's called exigent circumstances. That's why. That's the only reason why.
I just want clarification on the Good Samaritan law, that it does apply just specifically for AEDs and Narcans, and it specifically states that, because we know words matter.
I don't know why we are trying to put more on law enforcement officers. Like the fact that Cap has the ability to be a phlebotomist, I think we're putting a lot more on him. Like I understand the idea of doing so in order to expedite the process, but I just think that we're trying to throw so much onto officers that it's not going to end up in working out in the way that we would hope that it would work out. Like I think it's different with Narcan, it's different with an AED. I would never want an officer to then also be someone who's trained in how to monitor or deal with like glucose and diabetic. I just feel like we're putting a lot onto an officer when they already have, in my opinion, too much on their plate.
I have to agree with you. And I think, like I said earlier, when you start putting, a glucometer in their hands and requiring them to check not only for blood alcohol, but now we're requiring to check a glucose check, that is now bringing the fourth, 14th Amendments and HIPAA into the mix. I think instead it's great to have them trained to recognize those signs and call EMS. And I think that would be a much more productive way to get medical attention to the person, instead of saying, as an attorney, not yours, just said, instead of saying, well, we're putting this on you as well. Then we've got to have them trained in HIPAA. Then we've got to have them trained on the machinery. Then we have to have them medically trained to identify what the signs and symptoms are. Instead, we can just have them be able to identify, trained to identify that this is a medical emergency. I need to call EMS. And then you have people like Melissa and Mike who are specifically trained to have that information or to issue that type of testing.
Well,
exactly. And then where would it end? It would be like, okay, should we test? What if they have epilepsy? There could be a million different things that could potentially go on, and it could be endless.
we open the door to another problem.
They're
If
allowed
we
to
administer
interpret
it,
the signs and symptoms for alcohol, okay, right? Or like I said, the reason probably he didn't want to have the urine is because maybe he's on Adderall, and that does test positive for amphetamines, but it's prescription. But yet, now it's the burden of proof of him having to show his script, and stuff. Maybe that's why, because a lot of drugs will pop positive on a urine, and everything. But
Well,
but the
even if he wasn't taking any
drugs.
drugs, he still has the right to refuse a urinalysis.
Oh yeah, no, and but yet, so the cops can interpret some things, but they can interpret the signs and symptoms of alcohol, but not signs and symptoms of diabetes.
But you would agree that over the years, DUI has become such a problem that it's appropriate for our law enforcement to be able to identify drunk driving when it happens.
I would say it's more of illegal substances more than alcohol.
I would say you're statistically wrong. But
Okay, well,
the problem is, ma'am, if you start taking the position you're taking and expecting law enforcement to start administering medical treatments, okay, outside, like, here's the thing, Narcan, I could administer it to you, and if you didn't need it, it is going to have no ill side effect. None.
Exactly.
However, if you expect me to treat you for low blood sugar, I'm not a medical professional. So if I do X, and I don't know enough about it, but say I do X because that's what I'm told to do, and you have some adverse reaction to it, I don't know what to do next. I may very well have led to you being unalived. I'm not a medical professional. I don't have all the equipment on hand. If you have some kind of reaction, I may not know what to do, or I may not have the equipment to do it. So you're opening Pandora's box to people being unalived accidentally, to law enforcement agencies and officers being litigated with and sued. And then we're going to open this whole door of qualified immunity, and it's a box that should never be opened. I mean, the Narcan I'm good with, because if you don't need it, it's going to cause absolutely zero negative side effects. The AED I'm good with, because the AED does it all itself. All I've got to do is place the pads. If you don't have a shockable rhythm, it's going to tell me what to do. It's going to start talking to me and tell me, dial 911. Okay, perfect. I can't do anything beyond that.
Those two situations again and I'll stay calm, Tats, I promise. Are covered under the Good Samaritan Act, because any reasonable individual would do the same thing. You're allowed to use the Good Samaritan protects individuals for doing reasonable measures to save in the commission of saving a life. Using a glucometer is not one of them.
Okay, I'm going to bet are you? I'm going to unmute you and then give you the last word on this, and then we're going to move on. Oh, there we go.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
So I would like the attorney to define reasonable, because in a court of law, you would need to define reasonable. Reasonable to who?
Reasonable to a person.
Or
the reason that the legal system uses the word reasonable is because a jury will interpret that as they are the finder of fact of whether or not it was reasonable.
For me as a medical professional versus reasonable to a police officer, reasonable to a lay person. So there you go again. Words matter. Define reasonable in the context of.
It's going to be in the context of what?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry that these are protected practices. I'm sorry that
Oh, it's not. I'm a First Amendment auditor, so I'm a First Amendment auditor every day, and stuff. I'm one of those people.
Okay, that explains it. I'm done. I'm done, Tats.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
All right. So let's take a little bit of a break and stretch for just a moment. If you guys wouldn't mind tapping me up to 1:30, Jeff Pike is up here. Jeff, I'm going to give you until we get to 1:30 to talk about whatever you would like to talk about.
No, I was just going. Thanks for inviting me up.
Absolutely.
I'm a declared expert in DUI. I'm a breathalyzer operator, a maintenance operator for the breathalyzer machine. Over 600 DUI arrests. I'll give you what I think will happen with Tiger. He's indicative of an educated DUI history. They become more difficult. He'll take the refusal. He's worth 1.3 billion. You know, not being able to
worth
drive.
that much? Is it billion with a B?
Yeah, he's worth 1.3 billion.
Even after his divorce?
Yeah.
Oof, I feel bad for her. Go ahead.
And so, long story short, now here's what I've heard, and I don't know if everything's correct.
That Nike money, I forgot.
He flips the car. He took no field sobriety test. He blows 0 on the breathalyzer. There's no urine or blood test. He's taking a refusal. I have people all the time ask me the question, you know, if you know you're really, really impaired, either with substance or drinking, you're better off to take the refusal. He'll get a reckless driving and a refusal. You know, if he didn't take any field sobriety test, you could, even with his history. And I think I heard somebody earlier said nobody should admit that they knew it was Tiger Woods. I would go, hell yeah, I knew it was Tiger all day. He had his leg cut off or whatever. You just alter your test. So I've arrested people. I've arrested about 80 boat DUIs, and you have to alter those tests because you're on a boat. So you can utilize those tests for people who have severe medical history. Pretty easy.
Jeff.
Pretty easy.
An attorney not yours, did you just salivate when he said, yeah, I would have admitted it? I was like, ooh.
Well, what am I going to do? Lie about it? Did you know this was Tiger Woods? I'm not going to lie about it. Yeah, hell yeah, I knew it was him. That's the first mistake you make is to lie and on the stand.
That's a good point.
No, it's very smart to just admit to what you know. There's no reason to just make up stuff, because then it looks bad when we eventually do get that stuff out. So it's much easier right at the outset, just be like, yes, like I'm aware of Tiger Woods. Yes, I'm aware of his history. Right.
Yeah, that just move forward. Hey, did you know? You know, they may go a little bit more in depth. Did you know the severity of his injuries? Did you know, he almost lost his leg? Who knows?
Mike, did you have something that you wanted to say?
I was just trying to lighten the mood a little bit and just say that the quickest way, at least in New Jersey, to get yourself a DUI is have one drink and operate a boat, because there's 100 police boats out there, and it's just very easy DUI to.
Okay, but for the record, we're not telling anyone to go out and get one.
No, please don't do that.
If you remember, the same standards and levels apply to a boat as they do in a vehicle. The same things. The tests are altered. It takes way more time to do a boat, because you end up having to, if nobody else is able to drive the boat, you got to tow it. There's a whole lot of things. If you're on a big body of water, what jurisdiction are you in? I've worked lakes where there's 6 different jurisdictions, and depending on where you're at, how do you get them transported? It's a real pain in the butt. I've actually operated a jet ski on patrol. You pull a boat over on a jet ski, and you got a load of people that are all over the limit. It's a lot to it.
So let me ask
you. Remember last night, Tats, I mentioned that there were specific tests for boating for DUI as well.
Yeah, and so you can utilize those tests for people that have severe physical limitations. Some of them include verbal and whatnot, and that's when you ask the question about education. It's pretty standard. I've lost, of my 600 plus 3 DUIs, I've lost 3. Back in the day in Virginia, you had the choice of blood or breath. All 3 2 that I lost were blood, and you actually mailed the sample to the lab. And one sample got lost in mail. The person had the opportunity to pick an independent lab, and what we didn't know, the sheet to pick from, the lab had closed. And then I arrested a guy one time right at midnight, and the magistrate wrote up all the paperwork with the wrong date, and the judge kicked it over that. Now today they will amend those a lot of times, but back then they were pretty strict. So the magistrate had written up all the dates inappropriately, and it was kicked. So those are the three that I lost. The one that I was qualified as an expert involved Tom. There was no body cam video, but the crux of it was the guy announced over the radio he's making the stop. And then from that point until he says subject's under arrest, there was not enough time, in my opinion, to administrate the 5 tests he gave and have done it appropriately, given it was literally, I think, like 8 minutes passed from the time. And then, of course, they factored in, you got to get out of your car, you got to walk up, you walk back, you ran the license, then you did the test. And when you started breaking it down, there was no way you could have done those tests appropriately in the 3 or 4 minutes that was there. So and they got beat the case, and I got qualified in that case.
Can I ask a really strange question here? So, if you're operating a boat and you get a DUI, it communicates over to your driver's license. If you get so you lose your driver's license, at least in New Jersey. If you get a DUI or on any, whether it be a boat or a car, how are you able to operate a bicycle? Because it is case that, like, I unfortunately know a cop that arrested somebody for DUI while operating a bicycle. So how does that work?
Are you sniffing insulation in your basement?
Yeah, I really am.
I've never seen. Yeah, Sarah is right. It's technically a buoy, a BUI. I've never seen one on a bicycle. Have I seen one on a bicycle? No, I've never seen one on a bicycle. But we did have a client whose first legal name was Bubba in Georgia, who was arrested for a DUI on a riding lawnmower. It was
Heard of that one too.
It was his 5th DUI. He had a license suspension and was facing a revocation. And he genuinely thought if he was on his riding lawnmower that they could not bust him for that. And so he was riding that approximately 12 miles to his brother's house to attend a barbecue.
Well, the answer to that is the legal definition of a motor vehicle. That's the answer, Mike. A bicycle would not meet the definition of a motor vehicle.
Although, Captain, these days, thank you, Polly, these days with those motorized bicycles.
That's true. An e-bike, yeah. It could, because, and it's been a while since I've looked at the statutes, but to my recollection, the legal definition says a motor vehicle is anything designed to be self-propelled. Mm-hmm. So if it's got a motor, it's self-propelled.
Right. But you could argue that those new electric bikes, they can be self-propelled.
Yep. Yeah, you could articulate that. You could argue that.
Yeah. New Jersey just passed a law.
I don't know that I'd want to be the first one to ride it, but
I arrested a guy one time, DUI on a horse in Virginia. In Virginia, absolutely. In Virginia, horse riders on the highway, and we have what's called implied consent here, and it basically says, as an agreement with the state to operate certain things on the highway, you have to comply with the same laws.
Yeah, that's, again, I brought us way off topic and down a really weird wormhole. But I'm really good at that.
You really are.
We can have that conversation in mind, so that I'm not taking you off topic here.
So here's what I'm going to say. A couple of things. I've been going for over 2 hours, and so I am going to start wrapping up. I'm going to start at the top. We'll start with Mike. I'm going to go all the way down to bottom to Captain and give you guys an opportunity to do one last hoorah, so to speak. get your last comments out. I do want to point out Sarah in the chat. Thank you very much for letting us all know that Brian Enton is flying back apparently to Arizona. So the crime hoppers that are in here, Lala, Steph, I thought there was another one in here. Mike, you must have dropped. But make sure you're following them. Mike and Captain as well. Phoenix runs an amazing live as well. Make sure that you're following her if you're a true crime fan. Thank you guys for all the taps and all the gifts. If you wouldn't mind tapping while everybody's giving their last comments, I would love to get 150 before we end. But go ahead, Mike, you get 90 seconds.
So I'm not going to need 90 seconds. I feel like we could definitely get you to at least 160. So every 180 people in here, please definitely start tapping away on the screen. Tats, I do just want to apologize for.
No need. Stop. No need. You're good.
But I appreciate that. Other than that, no, I don't have anything else to say. I think it's been a great conversation thus far.
Yeah, it's been a great conversation, and I appreciate you being here.
No, thank you.
Lala, let's hear from you.
I walked in and out of that recent conversation, but I do have a question. Besides your book, which everyone should go to your profile and buy, I've been following crime for a while now, but I do love that I've recently amped up on TikTok a little bit. But I want to learn more about the criminal law side of it. Besides your book, is there a criminal law book for dummies that I could start with to get more into the law side of things?
There is actually Criminal Law for Dummies. I don't recommend it. I've read it. I didn't think it was a really good. If you're into true crime, so one of the books I read when I got my bachelor's degree that I feel like is very important read to this day is called The Rich Get Richer and the Poor Get Prison, and it illustrates how if you're wealthy, you can move different ways through the criminal justice system. Whereas if you're relying on public defenders and public assistants and things like that, you tend to move different ways through the criminal justice system. I think that's an important read to this day. And if you want something more educational, I will send you what I use when I teach criminal law. I'll send you my textbook.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Do you want to drop me so that Dora can come up to say hi real fast?
Sure.
I don't know if she's in the queue, but
Drop them. I'd love to.
I did give guys mods.
Tats read the book Lawho, folks. Okay, she read the book Lawho.
Really,
I
don't know, but I'm gonna need you to make that a book if it's not already one.
The Lawho?
Yes.
I could do that. Maybe on my next cruise, I'll write the Lawho. How's that? Just for you, Dora.
Late night read, isn't it?
That's a great that would be a late night Tats read for sure. Absolutely. How are you, darling?
I'm good. I wanted to come up and say thank you, Tats, for all that you do. We appreciate you and all of your knowledge and everybody. It's greatly appreciated. I was messing with Mike. He said, I don't need 90 seconds. I said, remember that, ladies. That's what he said. He doesn't.
See, it's not late enough for me to have even caught that. I would have caught that last night, but I didn't catch that. Well, thank you, Dora, for coming up and saying hello. I love you too.
Love.
Phoenix, your turn. 90 seconds. Thank you, Lorraine. I appreciate you saying that.
I came into this conversation a little bit late, but very interesting. I love your content. I'm new to you, so I'm following you. Very, very interesting conversation. And I know several people on this panel, so I wish I had more to add to it, but I kind of came in late, but you're doing a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I followed you back, so hopefully we can connect on one of your lives sometime.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Awesome.
Nice to meet you.
It was very nice to meet you as well. Thanks for sitting up here with us. An attorney, not yours. Thank you so much for being here. I'll give you 90 seconds, sir.
Yeah, no, I mean, thank you for having me. I like the way that you structure things here. It's very easy to follow along, whatnot. For people who, don't know me or aren't aware of me, I am a criminal defense attorney in California. I do work as a public defender, and I like trying to make law as accessible and as easy for people to understand as possible, because I don't feel like it should be confusing to understand your rights. So that's kind of the content of the way that I handle things on my side. And yeah, I mean, I don't really have much else other than say, like, this was a fantastic conversation to be a part of.
Thank you
And
for being here.
yeah, I appreciate the way that you run things here. I'm looking forward to seeing more of it.
Absolutely. You're welcome back here anytime. And Lala, since you were asking me, if you're not already following an attorney not yours, his content will teach you a lot about the I don't want to his content will teach you a lot about the criminal justice system, so make sure you're following him as well as everybody else in here. 176 people. Go follow Attorney Not Yours. You guys will learn a lot from his content. All right, Jeff Pike, 90 seconds, sir. What you got for me?
I'm just riding the coattails of Tats, hoping to make it in the world of TikTok. No, I'll say in closing, I think Tiger will take reckless refusal. The penalty will depend on a punitive penalty, may be an option there as far as if they really want to hammer him. My sources I talked to on Friday with the Guthrie people, my Fed sources, nothing new there. It's at a dead standstill as far as my guys on the East Coast. Other than that, if you follow me, I'm getting close to 7,000. I'm not up to 2 million like Tats, but I'm trying.
You guys are awful to me. Do you see how mean they are to me, you guys? And I let them come up here and do it. Like, there's something wrong with me. It's my problem. Jeff, I'm going to argue with you a little bit. I think Tiger walks from this. I think there's probable cause, but I think they're going to have a problem with reasonable doubt. And I know you weren't here earlier when we discussed that, but I think Tiger walks from this. But thank you for being here as always, sir.
Well, it's hard to get out of refusal. It's pretty cut and dry, but that's my opinion. We'll put another dollar bet on it.
Okay, you got it. You got it. Now we're up to $2, and I've already lost one. I lost a half of one. So
yeah.
All right. Thank you for being here, Jeff. Steph, thank you for being so flexible tonight and
Of course.
and dropping and coming back when I needed to make room for other people. What do you have for us for 90 seconds?
That I've learned a lot from you, so I love that. I've been really quiet and shy, but I'm coming out of my shell, so I'm going to be talking more. I don't know, and I love you.
I love you too, sweetheart. Thank you for being here, and again, thank you for being so flexible. I appreciate you.
Of course, anytime.
Melissa, my OG mod, who I have missed so much. Thank you for being here, girl. I know you didn't get a whole lot of time to talk, but when you did talk, you talked very, very well. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm great. Melissa, we figured out like a year after we knew each other that we live 6 miles from each other. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it is.
Anything you want to say?
We still haven't met up.
We still haven't. Yeah, that would require me to leave the house, but you know.
Me too, right?
Anything you want to say in your last 90 seconds, girl?
No, as usual. I've missed you guys. I'm glad I'm back. But great conversation as always in your chats. And I missed it, so
I'm so glad you're back. I am so glad you're back. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. And I don't believe I'm going to do this, but I'm going to give Cheeto the last word.
Yeah, Mike's going to regret it too. I just want to thank you for waking me up from my nap.
Absolutely. Happy to do it. Oh, Mike just, all right, Mike, that's enough. Mike just muted him, just like, know what happened.
I'm always happy to be on your panels, Tats. You're a great person. You do great things. And it's civil discussion. We can agree to disagree, which is normal for my position versus your position, that we're going to have disagreements, but right. we understand that that's just what it is. It's just a disagreement in opinion.
Right.
So, and at an attorney, not yours or whatever, you and I have actually spoke before, but I didn't follow you back then because I was just brand new on TikTok. So I made sure I followed you here. I had respect for you in that previous conversation as well. And so everybody knows, gifts are not what I'm looking for on here. I do see that I got a few. And I am going to use those for a new foundation I'm calling Feathers of Love. And we are going to use those to support Mike and his crow. And hopefully help Mike with the mental anguish that he's suffering from the release of his loved crow.
Thank you, Captain. If you guys don't know, Mike rescued a crow, I think, in his garage, and then released it. And if you're not following Captain, at least go over to his page and take a look at that crow video. You'll be glad that you did, and you'll see Mike in a whole other shirtless way. Let's put it that way. So, you guys have been fantastic with 186,000 taps and all of the gifts tonight. I really appreciate it. Everyone who followed me and followed everyone on the panel, thank you. It has been a great live. I can't believe we sat here for 2 hours and talked about DUI, but I think it was an important conversation. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it. So as I say every time, be good to yourselves, be good to those around you, and make good choices. There is a book in my bio, as some people alluded to tonight, if you're interested. There's also some freebies in my stand store. There's one, and there's a couple more that are coming out this week. I will talk to you guys possibly tomorrow night, and if I am, I will be on late. I will try once again to put it in a thought bubble.